Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Chris Hubbold, and this is Martin Ward. We're part of the software development team at BAE Systems Submarines. We're both developers, so you'll have to bear with our presentation ability. We're not used to this, but Mendix have asked us to speak today around our journey with Mendix. So we've been using Mendix for a couple of years now, so we're going to give a bit of an insight into how we transitioned to using Mendix, where we're currently at, and what our plan is for the future. So firstly, just like to introduce myself, to give a bit of a background on the team, and then Martin will introduce himself. So like I said, my name is Christopher Hubbold. I'm the Mendix team leader at Submarines. So what that means is I'm responsible for the development, the testing, and the production of any Mendix applications that we create. And I'm also responsible for the infrastructure, which we'll talk about later. I myself, I've got 9 years of software development experience, and I'm experienced in ABAP and UI5 mainly. So I've come from quite a technical background. Mendix, to be honest, scared me a little bit. I probably thought I was a bit above it, coming quite technical and going into low code, no code. And that's one of the things that we've had to learn and kind of transition. And I will talk about that and how we in particular kind of manage that resistance that we get from developers like myself. I'll just pass over to Martin.
Hello. So my name's Martin Ward. I am a Mendix developer, but I come from a completely different background to what Chris did. I was more infrastructure and application support for about 15 years. So your first line, second line, third line kind of stuff. I had very, very little experience, a little bit of HTML and CSS before I started. So yeah, but it's overall, it's been a really good fairly easy introduction, and obviously we'll talk a little bit more about the kind of stuff we've been developing shortly. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the objectives and what we were looking for from our low-code, no-code platform. I won't spend too long on it because, to be honest, a lot of what we've got here has already been spoken about today. So the first one we were looking for, we wanted to deliver faster on bespoke developments. So a lot of the requests we were getting into IT, we didn't have the manpower to fulfill the requests, so we were finding that we just couldn't develop them in time, so the requests just got lost, and then we ended up hitting the milestone that they actually needed the development for. And another big one is the enhancements to enterprise systems. So we wanted to keep the core as vanilla as possible. What we've done in the past is we've changed our enterprise systems, which is fine. It costs money to change them, but then when it comes to upgrading them, that's when you start to get the real issues. Because you've bespoked it so much, upgrading takes a very long time, and it's a lot of money. You're getting a lot of contractors in, and well, half the time it doesn't happen, so you end up with very, very outdated software. We wanted to reduce the reliance on external resource, so from a development point of view, we didn't have the skill sets that we needed, and we thought low code, no code, it's a lot more accessible. We can train our developers up on it, and we'd be able to fill the demand a lot easier. And then another big one for us was for the support. So our development tools in the past have been supported by a third party. So the production of them, getting applications into production, all of that, it took a very long time. We didn't have a lot of control over it. So we wanted a tool that's relatively easy to support from the infrastructure, so we could bring all of that in-house and reduce the reliance on that third party. And also a tool to complement our agile strategy. Like a lot of businesses, we declared we were agile about 10 years ago. But we didn't really have a tool that complemented that. So, you know, the .NET and kind of the Java, we couldn't develop prototypes fast enough that we could give them back to the users to kind of get that feedback loop going. So we really needed we were working in an agile way, we were doing sprints, but we weren't having those show and tells effectively enough to get that feedback. A big one for us, which is one of the reasons we went with Mendix, was to implement a tool which has close integrations with ERP and PLM. In our case, that's SAP and Teamcenter. A lot of the application requests we get in, and also we've tried to keep the core vanilla, were using data from Teamcenter and SAP. So we needed to make sure that we had a tool that could talk to it quite easily. And then finally, a big one from the development point of view was prevent the creation of shadow IT. We've got many access databases in our business, lots that we don't know about, lots that are business critical, and lots that go down quite often, and we get asked to support them, and we don't have a clue what they're on about. And also Excel spreadsheets. So we wanted to prevent that. We didn't want the technically minded people within the business to stop developing, but we wanted to give them a tool that we had the overarching governance of, so we knew what they were developing, and if it came to it, we could support it going forward. So we decided on Mendix, largely with the integrations, and it seemed like a really good tool, but how did we kind of transition into it? Firstly, we did a 1-week pilot. So Mendix came on site, and we got everyone in an office together. So we had Mendix, we had a business sponsor, and we had our developers. And we created a prototype application with a real use case in 1 week. And that helped the developers understand the power of Mendix, and that it wasn't just a fad, and that you actually could build something useful, and there was a lot of functionality there that you could make use of. The business really liked it because it showed that IT were actually improving, and that we were starting to use tools and we could get those applications quickly. And it also strengthened our relationship with Mendix, and it started the relationship off really well. Now we've got that constant communication with them, and we feel like we're a valued partner. Training courses, quite a simple one. We got all of the developers on the training. This wasn't just the Mendix team, so this is the .NET team, the Oracle middleware team. All of them are trained up on Mendix, just on the rapid development at the moment. From a business, we shifted to a Mendix first approach. So all of the bespoke application requests that come into IMNT, Mendix is the first thing to be considered. If it's a bit too complex, then we'll go down the other route. But what that's done is it's really helped us get that backlog of applications that we can start working on. And we've got quite a massive backlog now. But if we didn't have that Mendix first approach, you wouldn't really start seeing the benefit of it because we wouldn't have a lot of things to work on. And a big one, which we probably didn't do as well as we should have, was starting with the specific simpler use cases. You can get ahead of yourselves and try to solve every problem with one massively complex application. But what we found best was start smaller, understand the foundations of Mendix, how to use it, how to properly implement it, get your best practices in place, and then you can start expanding on your applications and getting more complex as you go on. So like I said, yeah, we didn't do that great, but if I was to do it again, that's definitely where we go. So I think Martin's going to just talk about the current state.
Yeah, so where are we? We currently have about 15 or so applications in production. There's going to be, I think, another 3 or 4 going in the next few weeks. As Chris has already mentioned, we have got integrations with PLM, ERP and planning, so that's your Team Sensei, your SAP and your like Primavera P6 type things. I believe there was talk on the last bit by the Mendix guys on the type of connectors that they use, so they've got specific connectors for each of those. We do use those in our integrations. And the last one, yeah, we've just gone through a major platform upgrade, so we went from version 8 to version 9. It was really, really straightforward. Normally, you can let applications sit and fester. We've still got some in our environment that are a good 10 years old, but it's really hard to get them upgraded. The Mendix upgrade allows you to go through it really quickly, and you can run both apps alongside each other, both versions in production, so you don't have to do everything all at once. And it's a really smooth thing. But if you've got any questions, come and see us later on. Take you through it. Thanks.
So just like to quickly show you kind of the organisational footprint. So Mendix helped us kind of develop this overview of what parts of the business that our Mendix applications are actually targeting. And from here, we can get quite a lot of information around what Mendix helps us with and the areas that we need to improve. So one of the key things is on the right, you can see we've got quite a lot of applications in the business support area. These applications in the past simply wouldn't get created. These tend to be your Excel spreadsheets or your Access databases where the request will come into IMNT. We'll not necessarily shut it down, but we won't get around to it, so they'll create their own. But what we found with Mendix is we can get them rolled out quite quickly. There's a lot of COVID apps in there. Mendix was quite key in our COVID response. There's things like desk booking, room booking, just things like that. Those smaller applications which provide real benefits to the business, but you don't necessarily get them in your old, more standard development platforms because they're not or complex enough or flashy enough. You can see we've got quite a few integrations. So some of the applications are doing both SAP P6, some are doing both SAP Team Center, but we can also see that we're we're not necessarily targeting some of the areas, or we've got applications that are missing in some areas. So the plan is that we'll go to these areas and understand why Mendix isn't necessarily being used. It's either because they don't know about it, so they're not getting us the requests, or Mendix might not be applicable. But what we need to do is just understand why that's happening. So they are all of the applications we've got. The names have been changed quite a bit for security reasons, but we'll go into some of them now and give you a bit of an overview. So the first one, simple application, the desk booking tool. So this was part of our COVID response. As everyone was coming back into the office, we needed a quick tool to allow users to book desks. A lot of desks were closed down because of social distancing, so all of the office layouts were changed. So we needed something that they could just log on to and quickly book a desk and do it easily. It's quite an impressive application in that it only took 4 weeks, which might seem a long time, but in our standards that was a very, very short. And it was 2 trainees who had little to no experience of Mendix in the first place. And it serves around 8,000 users. And one of the impressive things about the application is that we don't offer training for it. Because we're just using Mendix out of the box, and we're using all of the layouts that Mendix offers because it's what the users are used to seeing online and using computers normally, and the way the screens flow, we don't actually need to do any training. So it's 8,000 users, but we don't get incidents, we don't get requests asking for training because they all know how to use it. It's also got some quite handy reporting and email functionality. Now, the email functionality is just a module we downloaded, so it's quite a powerful piece of functionality, but it's very simple to implement with Mendix. And we're finding that those repeatable bits of functionality that you want in a lot of your apps, you're kind of getting them for free with Mendix, and it's really quite useful. Martin will take you through some of the more complex applications we've got.
Okay, yes. So TEMS. TEMS is a task management system, and where it came from was an area of the business was using 3 separate systems to give tasks to their engineers, wasting a lot of time. So they came to us. Originally, the architects had designed this in Jira, but at the 9th hour or 11th hour, we came in and said, that's really complicated. It looked like an absolute nightmare to support. So we showed them a design in Mendix, which was taken, and that's what we went ahead with. It's got integrations with both planning, so I think that's the P6, and it also has an integration with, I believe it's your team center, so they bring tasks across from both of those systems, and a bespoke .NET application. So it's like a one space where the managers can show their tasks to all their engineers, and then it has a lot of built-in reporting as well, using I think it's the AnyChart plugin, which you can download from the marketplace. And that's been a real turn. It's saved them a lot of time and money, so they're quite impressed with that one. Okay, part maturity. So this one I know a little bit less about. So it was made in a big rush. This one was done in 4 weeks by a guy that had literally just joined us, a .NET developer. And this is for a part approvals system. So this goes out to every kind of team and stuff that needs to approve new parts that get uploaded to it each week. And because it was developed so quickly, this helped the business meet a milestone that wouldn't have been possible if it was developed in a traditional fashion. Service request management. So this is like a ticketing system that we use in now 2 areas, so 2 big buildings, manufacturing buildings. So this is for the teams who work on the shop floor. So you've got your welders, shipwrights, whatever it is that they do in the business. They can request each team for their time. It links in with ERP as well. So you get your work order kind of information out of SAP, and then they can book time back against that as well. It's got a couple of interfaces. This one uses the SAP data, which you saw earlier. It also has a BI extract coming out of it. And it does also have an old lift and shift sort of via middleware file transfer, but we've learned from that, and that's where we now have the OData connector in there as well.
Right, so just some learning. So like I mentioned previously, we did have some resistance from the developers originally, and I will hold my hand up, it was mainly me. I was very into the technical parts of Mendix, but what really helped me was just to start using it, getting hands on it, and what you realise is that Mendix, the bits where you get the speed and the faster developments are usually the boring bits of development anyway, where you try to sort your UI out, where you try to move a box 2 centimetres to the left, things like that. Mendix makes it really easy. So once your developers realise that it's actually the manual boring bits that Mendix speeds up, and you still need to have a logical brain and you can still build really elegant solutions, they'll kind of quickly come around to it. I know I did. The costing model, so the tooling charge is something that we've implemented. It might not be relevant to your business, but in order to recoup some of the costs, what we do is we'll provide a development estimate of hours, and alongside that we'll provide a tooling charge which the business has to pay, and then we use that to pay off some of the licensing fees. We find the business have no issue paying it because the development costs are so much lower than the traditional methods, so that's really fine, but it's just one of the things that we've learned that we need to do. A bit of an unexpected one was the managing the complex business process. So in the past, if a member of the business comes and they'll have this outrageously complex process that is very unnecessary, but because we're writing it in .NET or something, it's possible, even though it may take 2 years to complete, we can do it. What we find with Mendix is we'll say, well, we can't do that in Mendix. You either have to simplify your process or you'll have to go the .NET route and it'll take 2 years. And what we're finding now is because of how well known Mendix is within the business or the kind of reputation it's getting within the business, they actually would rather simplify their process and work with us to make it simpler and also have the Mendix application. So we're finding Mendix is really useful for just bringing the business down a bit and saying, look, it doesn't need to be that complex. Let's simplify it and put it into Mendix. One of the big ones which we absolutely fell short of to begin with is your collaboration between your Mendix teams and your enterprise teams is essential. You're going to need those enterprise teams to sort out all of your integrations. So your SAP teams, your Team Center teams, you're going to need to bring them along the journey with you. If you don't, you're only going to be as fast as they are. So if you're rapidly developing applications and then you come to require support from them, they don't know about it, it's going to slow everything down. So you need to get them on board as you bring Mendix in, and then you kind of work with them and how they want to work and get them on board with how you want to work. And that's something that we're constantly improving on. Okay, so just finish off just to talk a bit about the future. So one of the things we're going to do is get everyone Rapid certified. That's not just the Mendix team, that's everyone within the development team, so there'll be about 15 people. And then a big thing for us is the citizen developer scheme. We're only just starting on our journey with help from Mendix on that, but we really need to start replacing those access databases with Mendix. And we're going to start getting some key users in the business involved, and we're going to start building the processes around that citizen developer scheme. And Mendix are helping us along the way with that. And like Martin mentioned, we upgraded from version 8 to 9. Because we support the infrastructure, we want to keep making sure that we're upgrading as Mendix upgrades. It's one of the things that we really find powerful about the tool. We can constantly use the new tools that are available and the new functionality. And like a lot of the systems we've got, which are completely outdated, we want to make sure Mendix keeps up to date. And then finally is demonstrate the capabilities of Mendix throughout the business. So I touched on that a bit in the organisational footprint. We want to make sure we're targeting those areas of the business that don't necessarily know about Mendix or don't necessarily know about the capability we can offer them. And we'll do some road shows and we'll take the tool to them, take the benefits, and hopefully get them using it. So that's all we've got. I think, do we take questions now or later?
Hi, just a quick question for me. So could you step through who within your business does what part of it when you approach a new application?
Yeah, so we usually get the request in from someone from the business. So we call them non-standard requests. So they'll come into IT and we have product groups set up. So it'll go into a product group who then decide if it fits into an enterprise system or if it needs to come out of a bespoke development assigned to it. It'll get prioritised and then it'll come to assessment from myself or Martin or any of the team. We'll send that assessment back, then some money will get set aside for it, and then it'll come back to us for implementation. But it's all about, and what we're still learning at the minute is that prioritisation of requests. So we're getting lots of requests in for Mendix applications, but they need to be prioritised, so we need to know which ones we're starting on. And that's really where that collaboration with the enterprise teams and those product groups comes in handy, improving the communication there.